Story. 11. Autobiography, a self-recorded fiction. By John Barth. Summary. Autobiography, a self-recorded fiction, by John Barth is a self-referential narrative that delves into the intricacies of storytelling. Written in an experimental style, it explores the process of crafting a story, blurring the lines between fiction and reality. John Barth, renowned for his philosophical and satirical novels, including The End of the Road and The Sotweed Factor, employs this piece as a unique literary experiment. The story serves as a meta-narrative, inviting readers to contemplate the art of storytelling itself. Through its innovative approach, Barth challenges conventional narrative techniques, offering a thought-provoking exploration of the creative process. The narrator contemplates their existence, expressing a sense of detachment and uncertainty about their own identity. They question the circumstances of their conception and feel a lingering sense of unresolved conflict. The narrator reflects on their perception of the world, describing a disconnection between their speech and their own awareness. They ponder whether there is an external presence listening to them, while acknowledging the possibility of their own imagination. Ultimately, the narrator grapples with the idea of being a fictional entity, suggesting that a voice implies a speaker, but leaving the nature of that speaker ambiguous. The narrator reflects on their existence, describing themselves as a fragmented narrative, burdened by a first-person perspective. They grapple with questions of identity, feeling like a formless entity lacking substance or purpose. The narrator acknowledges their transient nature, emphasizing the improbable circumstances of their conception and birth. They humorously contemplate the possibility of an extended, even eternal, lifespan. The narrator then delves into their origin, revealing a complex familial dynamic, marked by unconventional choices and societal shifts. They conclude with a sense of defiance, embracing their unorthodox nature in the face of societal norms. The narrator reflects on their origin, acknowledging that their existence resulted from a passing infatuation of their father, which has long since faded. Despite their unconventional conception, the narrator remains a living testament to their father's folly. The father contemplates destroying them to avoid public exposure, but the narrator persists, suggesting a complex interplay of emotions and motives. The narrator speculates about their true parentage, entertaining the notion of dual paternity. They grapple with self-contempt, scorning their affinity for paradox and certain inclinations. The narrator embraces their unique identity, recognizing that being themselves is no trivial matter. The narrator reflects on their unconventional conception and subsequent survival. They suggest that while they may have been physically consumed, their voice remains, like an indomitable force. The narrator acknowledges that they are not the impressive figure their parents had hoped for. Instead, they see themselves as conventional and lacking in heroic qualities. They grapple with a sense of self-awareness, questioning the validity of their own perceptions. As they ponder their future, the narrator expresses a resignation to the uneventful course of their life. They consider the slim possibility of a miraculous turn of events, but acknowledge the unlikelihood of a dramatic change. The narrator confesses their early aspirations for a glorious and immortal existence. They imagined themselves as beautiful, powerful, and beloved. Even their perceived flaws, like a lack of presence, did not lead them to despair. They saw potential heroism in their supposed crippledness. However, being an idealized version of themselves became their undoing. They contemplate the idea of being stuck in a prolonged state of delivery, suggesting an interrupted pregnancy. Frustrated by their inability to end their own existence, they appeal to their father for mercy. In the end, they resign themselves to a less than dramatic conclusion, hoping for a quiet exit without much fanfare. The narrator acknowledges that they might have orchestrated things differently, but it's too late now. They reflect on the futility of trying to conjure memorable last words, ultimately accepting that their final utterances will simply be the last words they speak. A. Multiple choice questions. 1. In addition to the short story writer, Barth is also A. Poet. B. Novelist. C. Essayist. D. Dramatist. 2. What is exposition in fiction? A. preliminary description. B. Climax. C. The ending. D. A changing moment. 3. What is the most important factor for the writer to continue writing? A. Time. B. Situation. C. Mood. D. Incentive. 4. Who is the speaker in the story? A. A young man. B. A story. C. A young girl. D. The author. 5. What do you mean by basket case? A. Very useful. B. Useless. C. Meaningful. D. Doubtful. Extra MCQs. 1. What is the genre of autobiography, a self-recorded fiction, by John Barth? A. Mystery. B. Science fiction. C. Self-reflective narrative. D. Romance. 2. In the story, what does John Barth explore through his experimental style? A. Political themes. B. The intricacies of storytelling. C. Historical events. D. Psychological analysis. 3. What does the narrator contemplate about their own identity? A. Their physical appearance. B. Their existence and detachment. C. Their familial background. D. Their career aspirations. 4. How does the narrator describe their perception of the world? A. Clear and vivid. B. Disconnected and detached. C. Colorful and vibrant. D. Chaotic and confusing. 5. What does the narrator ponder about the nature of their own existence? A. Whether they are a fictional entity. B. Whether they are a famous author. C. Whether they are a historical figure. D. Whether they are a celebrity. 6. How does the narrator describe their own identity in terms of storytelling? A. A complete and well-structured narrative. B. A fragmented and burdened narrative. C. A fictional character with a clear purpose. D. An autobiography with a happy ending. 7. What does the narrator contemplate about their origin? A. The improbable circumstances of their conception and birth. B. Their potential for greatness and heroism. C. The conventional nature of their existence. D. The lack of importance in their familial background. 8. How does the narrator view their own identity in relation to societal norms? A. They embrace societal expectations fully. B. They challenge societal norms with defiance. C. They conform to societal standards without question. D. They are indifferent to societal norms. 9. What does the narrator suggest about their own existence in terms of their father's intentions? A. They were a carefully planned creation. B. They were the result of a passing infatuation. C. They were a deliberate attempt to challenge societal norms. D. They were an unexpected and unwelcome addition. 10. How does the narrator describe their relationship with their father? A. They share a close and loving bond. B. They have a complex and conflicted relationship. C. They have a distant and detached connection. D. They have never met their father. 11. What does the narrator grapple with in terms of self-awareness? A. A strong sense of self-identity. B. A deep understanding of their purpose in life. C. Doubts and uncertainties about their own perceptions. D. A clear and unwavering sense of purpose. 12. How does the narrator perceive the potential for a dramatic change in their life? A. They believe it is highly likely. B. They think it is unlikely but possible. C. They consider it impossible. D. They are indifferent to the possibility. 13. What does the narrator confess about their early aspirations? A. They wanted to be a famous author. B. They aspired to a glorious and immortal existence. C. They dreamed of becoming a successful entrepreneur. D. They had no particular aspirations. 14. How does the narrator view their perceived flaws, such as a lack of presence? A. They see them as opportunities for heroism. B. They consider them to be insignificant. C. They view them as insurmountable obstacles. D. They see them as a source of despair. 15. What does the narrator appeal to their father for? A. Mercy and an end to their existence. B. Financial support for their aspirations. C. Guidance on how to live a successful life. D. Forgiveness for any past wrongdoings. 16. How does the narrator feel about their own attempts to conjure memorable last words? A. Confident and assured. B. Frustrated and resigned. C. Optimistic and hopeful. D. Indifferent and uninterested. 17. What does the narrator ultimately accept about their final utterances? A. They will be a powerful and impactful message. B. They will be a source of regret and disappointment. C. They will simply be the last words they speak. D. They will be a reflection of their true identity. 18. What is the overarching theme of Autobiography, a self-recorded fiction? A. Love and relationships. B. Identity and self-awareness. C. Mystery and suspense. D. Historical events and figures. 19. How does John Barth challenge conventional narrative techniques in this story? A. By incorporating elements of fantasy and magic. B. By blurring the lines between fiction and reality. C. By using complex and inaccessible language. D. By focusing solely on action and plot development. 20. What term best describes the narrator's view of their own existence? A. Detached and uncertain. B. Confident and self-assured. C. Content and satisfied. D. Joyful and exuberant. 21. What is the narrator's relationship with their parents like? A. They have a close and loving relationship. B. They have a complex and unconventional familial dynamic. C. They have a distant and strained relationship. D. They have never met their parents. 22. How does the narrator perceive their own identity in relation to societal norms? A. They conform to societal expectations without question. B. They challenge societal norms with defiance. C. They are indifferent to societal norms. D. They embrace societal expectations fully. 23. What does the narrator grapple with in terms of their own identity and purpose? A. A strong sense of self-identity and purpose. B. Doubts and uncertainties about their own identity and purpose. C. A clear and unwavering sense of purpose. D. A lack of interest in understanding their own identity and purpose. 24. How does the narrator describe their relationship with their father? A. They share a close and loving bond. B. They have a complex and conflicted relationship. C. They have a distant and detached connection. D. They have never met their father. 25. What is the narrator's ultimate acceptance about their own existence and identity? A. They embrace their unique identity, recognizing that being themselves is no trivial matter. B. They reject their own identity, wishing they were someone else. C. They continue to grapple with doubts and uncertainties about their own existence and identity. D. They have a strong sense of self-identity and purpose. B. Short questions. 1. How does fiction introduce itself? In John Barth's Autobiography, a self-recorded fiction, fiction introduces itself through a self-reflective and self-aware narrative. The story begins by contemplating its own existence and identity, expressing a sense of detachment and uncertainty. It acknowledges that its first words weren't truly its first, suggesting a self-awareness of its constructed nature. The narrator expresses a wish for a different beginning, indicating a desire for a more authentic and meaningful introduction. The narrative voice grapples with the idea of not having a proper name, implying a level of self-awareness about its own fictional nature. It reflects on the circumstances of its conception, expressing a sense of surprise and detachment from the process. This introspection continues as the narrator questions the act of being conceived and the role of its parents in the process. The narrator even contemplates the possibility of being a result of vengeance, suggesting a complex understanding of its own existence. Through this self-awareness, the fiction introduces itself as a narrative with a unique perspective on its own creation. It blurs the lines between reality and fiction, inviting readers to consider the intricacies of storytelling. The narrative voice's introspective nature sets the stage for a thought-provoking exploration of the creative process, and the nature of narrative itself. 2. Why does the author identify the conception and birth of a story with the process of childbearing? The author, John Barth, uses the metaphor of conception and birth to describe the process of creating a story in order to highlight the creative and generative nature of storytelling. By drawing parallels between storytelling and childbearing, Barth emphasizes the idea that a story is not simply composed of words on a page, but is instead a living entity that is brought into existence through the writer's imagination and effort. Comparing the birth of a story to the conception and birth of a child also serves to underscore the sense of responsibility and investment that a writer has in their work. Just as parents are responsible for nurturing and raising their children, a writer must invest time, energy, and creativity in crafting and developing their story. This metaphor emphasizes the intimate connection between the creator and their creation. Furthermore, by using this metaphor, Barth suggests that stories, like children, have the potential to grow, evolve, and have a life of their own beyond their initial creation. They can impact readers, influence culture, and even inspire other works of art. This perspective encourages a deeper appreciation for the art of storytelling and underscores its significance in human culture and communication. 3. How is the personality of the author reflected in fiction? The personality of the author, John Barth, is reflected in the fiction through the introspective and self-aware nature of the narrative. The narrator in the story contemplates their own existence, identity, and creative process, which mirrors Barth's penchant for philosophical and self-reflexive storytelling. This introspection suggests a deep intellectual curiosity and a tendency to explore complex existential questions. Barth's affinity for experimentation and unconventional narrative techniques is evident in the structure and style of the story. The narrative blurs the lines between fiction and reality, challenging conventional storytelling norms. This experimental approach reflects Barth's own willingness to push boundaries and his desire to engage readers in a thought-provoking exploration of storytelling itself. Additionally, the narrator's sense of detachment and uncertainty about their own identity may resonate with Barth's own contemplative and introspective tendencies as a writer. The exploration of themes like self-doubt, identity crisis, and the creative process may offer glimpses into Barth's own artistic journey and his experiences as a writer. Overall, the narrative's introspective nature, combined with its experimental style, serves as a reflection of John Barth's intellectual curiosity, willingness to challenge traditional storytelling conventions, and his personal engagement with philosophical and existential questions. 4. Why does each fiction not result in good creation? Each fiction may not result in a good creation because the process of storytelling is inherently complex and unpredictable. The narrative suggests that not every attempt at creating a story will lead to a successful or satisfying outcome. This is due to several potential factors. What constitutes a good creation is highly subjective and varies from person to person. What resonates with one reader or audience may not have the same impact on another. Writers, including the fictional narrator, can experience creative blocks or moments of uninspired writing. These periods can hinder the development of a compelling narrative. Sometimes, the initial vision or idea for a story may not be well-defined, leading to a lack of coherence or focus in the narrative. Authors like John Barth are known for experimenting with narrative techniques, which can sometimes result in unconventional or challenging storytelling that may not resonate with all readers. The narrator's aspiration for immortality and a heroic narrative may set unrealistic expectations, making it difficult to achieve a satisfactory outcome. Outside factors such as life events, emotions, or external pressures can impact the creative process, potentially leading to less successful creations. The narrator's self-contempt and struggle with identity may reflect feelings of self-doubt that can hinder the creative process. not every attempt at creation will necessarily represent the artist's best work. Artists, including writers, evolve and grow over time, and not every piece will reach the same level of excellence. In essence, the complexities of the creative process, combined with the subjective nature of artistic evaluation, contribute to the variability in the quality of creations in fiction. 5. What do you understand by fiction in utero? Fiction in utero is a metaphor used in the narrative to describe a state of creative gestation or development. In literal terms, in utero refers to the period during which a fetus develops within the womb of a mother before birth. However, when applied metaphorically to fiction, it signifies a stage in the creative process where a story or narrative is still in its early formative phases, akin to a developing fetus. This metaphor suggests that the narrator sees their narrative as being in a premature, embryonic state, implying that it has not fully matured or come to fruition. It may lack completeness, coherence, or a clear sense of direction, much like an unborn child has not yet fully developed its physical form. By using this metaphor, the narrator is expressing a sense of uncertainty or incompleteness about the narrative they are attempting to create. They may feel that their story is still in the early stages of development, and it has not yet reached its full potential or clarity. This metaphorical concept also implies that the narrator may be grappling with questions of identity and purpose in the context of their narrative, much like a developing fetus is not yet fully formed or self-aware. Overall, fiction in utero encapsulates the narrator's contemplation of their narrative's early, unrefined state, highlighting a sense of potential, but also a need for further development and growth. 6. Why does the writer compare a fiction with basket case? The comparison of a fiction to a basket case is a metaphor used by the narrator to convey a sense of inadequacy, dysfunction, and a feeling of being emotionally or mentally overwhelmed. In this context, a basket case refers to a person who is perceived as being severely emotionally or mentally disturbed, to the point where they are unable to function effectively in society. By likening the fiction to a basket case, the narrator is expressing a self-deprecating view of their own narrative. They may feel that their storytelling efforts are disjointed, chaotic, or struggling to hold together cohesively, much like a person who is considered a basket case may be perceived as unable to hold themselves together emotionally or mentally. Furthermore, this comparison may also suggest that the narrator sees their narrative as a collection of disparate elements or ideas that do not fit together seamlessly. It implies a sense of disorder or instability within the narrative structure. Overall, by using the metaphor of a basket case, the narrator conveys a feeling of frustration or dissatisfaction with the current state of their narrative, suggesting that it may require significant restructuring or refinement to reach a more coherent and functional form. See long questions. 1. Interpret autobiography as a metafiction. Autobiography, a self-recorded fiction, by John Barth, can be interpreted as a metafiction due to its self-referential and self-aware nature. Metafiction is a literary technique that draws attention to the fictional nature of the narrative, often by breaking the fourth wall or by including elements that comment on the process of storytelling itself. In autobiography, the narrator engages in a profound self-reflection about the act of writing and storytelling. The narrator questions their own existence, expressing a sense of detachment and uncertainty about their identity. This introspection serves as a commentary on the nature of narrative creation. The narrator grapples with the idea of being a fictional entity, suggesting that a voice implies a speaker, but leaving the nature of that speaker ambiguous. Furthermore, the narrator reflects on their own writing process, considering the potential impact and reception of their words. They acknowledge the possibility that their words may not be heard or understood, highlighting the subjective nature of interpretation in storytelling. The piece also explores the complexities of authorship and the relationship between the writer and their creation. The narrator contemplates the circumstances of their conception and reflects on their unconventional birth. This narrative choice draws attention to the constructed nature of the story and invites readers to consider the role of the author in shaping the narrative. Additionally, the piece employs various narrative techniques and stylistic choices that contribute to its metafictional nature. The narrator's self-awareness, their contemplation of their own existence, and their reflection on the act of storytelling all serve to blur the lines between fiction and reality. Overall, autobiography, a self-recorded fiction, can be interpreted as a metafiction because it not only tells a story, but also invites readers to reflect on the process of storytelling itself, emphasizing the constructed and fictional nature of narrative creation. 2. John Barth wrote in an essay, The Literature of Exhaustion, published in 1967, that fiction writers had run out their subject. Do you think this story is a kind of justification of his statement made earlier? Why or why not? John Barth's essay, The Literature of Exhaustion, published in 1967, argued that traditional modes of fiction were becoming increasingly limited, and that writers were struggling to find new and innovative approaches to storytelling. In this context, autobiography, a self-recorded fiction, can be seen as a reflection of Barth's ideas on the challenges faced by fiction writers. The story exhibits elements that align with Barth's assertion in The Literature of Exhaustion. It engages in a highly self-aware and self-reflexive exploration of the process of storytelling. The narrator grapples with questions of identity, existence, and the nature of narrative creation. This intense self-reflection suggests a sense of introspection and a search for new avenues of narrative expression, which resonates with Barth's belief that fiction needed to evolve beyond conventional forms. Furthermore, the story's experimental style and unconventional narrative techniques demonstrate a departure from traditional storytelling norms. The fragmented and introspective nature of the narrative challenges conventional narrative structures, echoing Barth's call for a re-evaluation of established literary forms. However, it's important to note that while autobiography, a self-recorded fiction, may reflect some of Barth's concerns about the limitations of traditional fiction, it is just one example of the diverse approaches that writers can take to address these challenges. Not all fiction writers may share the same sentiments or arrive at the same conclusions regarding the state of literature. In essence, while the story may resonate with Barth's ideas, it should not be seen as a definitive justification of his statement. Instead, it serves as a creative response to the evolving landscape of fiction, showcasing one possible way in which writers can grapple with the perceived limitations of traditional storytelling. 3. How does the author reject the external world in the process of fictional creation? In autobiography, a self-recorded fiction, the author rejects the external world in the process of fictional creation by emphasizing a sense of detachment and introspection. This rejection is manifested in several ways. Detachment from reality. The narrator expresses a feeling of detachment from the external world. They question their own existence and identity, indicating a sense of estrangement from reality. This detachment is further highlighted by the narrator's uncertainty about their own name, suggesting a disconnection from conventional labels and identities. Self-contained narrative. The story is a self-contained narrative that primarily revolves around the narrator's introspective thoughts and reflections. It does not rely heavily on external events, settings, or characters. Instead, it focuses on the internal processes of the narrator's mind, rejecting the need for extensive external world building. Focus on internal dialogue. The narrator engages in an internal dialogue, contemplating their own existence and the nature of storytelling. This introspective focus indicates a turning inward, away from the external world. The narrative does not prioritize describing external environments or interactions with other characters. Ambiguity of the listener. The narrator questions whether there is an external presence listening to them. This ambiguity surrounding the presence of a listener further reinforces the idea of an internal, self-contained narrative. It leaves open the possibility that the narrator may be speaking to themselves or that the listener is a product of their own imagination. Exploration of self-consciousness. The narrator grapples with questions of self-consciousness, pondering whether they truly know what they are talking about. This self-doubt and uncertainty about their own awareness suggest a retreat from the external world in favor of an internal, reflective state. Overall, the rejection of the external world in the process of fictional creation in this story is evident through the narrator's intense introspection, detachment from conventional realities, and focus on internal thoughts and reflections. This approach aligns with the story's self-referential and experimental nature, emphasizing the exploration of storytelling from within the confines of the narrator's own mind. 4. Who does the author provide the role of mother and father, and how does he assign them the tasks? In Autobiography, a self-recorded fiction, the author provides the roles of mother and father to the narrator's parents, but the assignment of these roles is unconventional and symbolic rather than literal. The mother and father figures represent aspects of the narrator's creative process and their relationship with storytelling. Mother figure. The mother figure in the story can be interpreted as a symbol of creativity, inspiration, and the nurturing aspect of storytelling. This figure represents the source from which the narrator's creativity is born. The mother is described as a passing fancy or a novel device, suggesting that creativity can be fleeting and unconventional. This aligns with the idea that inspiration can come unexpectedly and may not conform to traditional expectations. The mother's unconventional nature is further emphasized by her role in the narrator's conception. She is not a conventional mother in the literal sense, but rather a representation of the unpredictable and sometimes unconventional sources of creative inspiration. Father figure. The father figure can be seen as a symbol of authority, control, and the critical aspect of storytelling. This figure represents the part of the narrator's creative process that seeks to shape and refine their narrative. The father's initial infatuation and subsequent attempts to end the narrator's existence can be interpreted as a reflection of the critical voice within the author's mind. This voice evaluates and judges the narrative, sometimes to the point of considering its destruction. The father's role also highlights the struggle between creation and destruction in the creative process. While the mother represents the birth of ideas, the father symbolizes the critical voice that seeks to refine and sometimes even reject them. Overall, the assignment of the roles of mother and father in the story serves to illustrate the complex and multifaceted nature of the creative process. The mother embodies the initial burst of inspiration and creativity, while the father represents the critical voice that seeks to shape and refine the narrative. Together, these symbolic figures reflect the internal dialogue and conflict that often accompany the act of storytelling. 5. According to the author, who actually gives life to the fiction and how? According to the author, fiction is brought to life through the act of writing and storytelling. The process of giving life to fiction is described in a self-referential and metafictional manner, blurring the lines between the author, the narrator, and the act of creation itself. Narrator as the source. The narrator of the story serves as the conduit through which fiction is brought to life. The narrator contemplates their existence and their role in the creation of the narrative. They express a sense of detachment and uncertainty about their own identity, which mirrors the creative process itself. The act of storytelling is a means through which the narrator explores and defines their own existence. Writing as the act of creation. The act of writing is presented as the mechanism through which fiction is given life. The narrator's reflections and musings are themselves part of the narrative, blurring the distinction between the author and the story they are telling. This self-referential approach emphasizes that the act of writing is integral to the creation of fiction. The voice and the speaker. The narrator ponders whether there is an external presence listening to them, raising questions about the nature of the narrator's own existence. They suggest that a voice implies a speaker, but the identity of that speaker remains ambiguous. This ambiguity reflects the idea that fiction is a construct that comes to life through the act of storytelling, regardless of the specific identity of the creator. The creative process as a reflective journey. The author's exploration of the creative process serves as a reflection on the act of storytelling itself. The narrative invites readers to contemplate the art of storytelling, emphasizing that fiction is not a static entity but a dynamic and evolving creation. In summary, the author suggests that fiction comes to life through the act of writing and storytelling. The narrator serves as the vessel through which the narrative is expressed, and the act of creation is intertwined with reflections on identity, existence, and the nature of storytelling itself. Through this self-referential approach, the author highlights the transformative power of storytelling in bringing fiction to life. Best of luck.